A senior high school student wakes up on her 18th birthday and goes through her morning routine before heading for the shower. We learn that the girl is a cheerleader who has an unusual love for lollipops and lives with her parents and two sisters. She is excited to meet her recent love interest, Nick, who is waiting to offer her a gift for her birthday at school. Little does she know, a zombie infestation has broken out at the school as a sudden horde surrounds Nick from all directions. Realizing she is late, she quickly gets dressed and rushes to the school on her bike, but is surprised to discover her school infested with zombies. Driving through the zombie horde, she arrives at the school in dramatic fashion and continues to take out a chainsaw. Casually slaughtering the horde, she strikes a pose and introduces herself as Juliet Starling. After defeating several hordes, Juliet finally manages to get to the school and searches for Nick, but is ambushed by a stumbling zombie from behind. Nick suddenly appears and saves her by slamming the zombie into the ground. Moments after he strangles him, Nick is bitten by the hungry zombie. Juliet intervenes by slicing the zombie in the midsection and rushes over to the infected Nick. The two have a dramatic moment together, realizing Nick will soon become zombified as Nick confesses his love for Juliet. Determined to save Nick from death, Juliet comes to the obvious conclusion of chainsawing his head off.
I love you too, baby!
This is the story of Lollipop Chainsaw. As always, beware of spoilers and enjoy the story. Once conscious, Nick is shocked to find himself without his body.
How am I still talking without a fucking thorax?
Guilt-ridden, Juliet reasons that she decapitated and performed a magic ritual on him so she could prevent him from ever becoming a zombie. A confused Nick questions Juliet as to why she knew magic rituals, as a horde of zombies suddenly appears behind them.
I'm a zombie hunter.
What?
After revealing that she is a zombie hunter, Juliet attaches Nick's head to her belt and fights her way through the zombie-filled school. Defeating several hordes of zombies, she eventually comes across her teacher, Sensei Morikawa. Once they meet up, Morikawa explains that the universe is divided into three realms: Earth, the land beyond words, and the rotten world, an infernal realm where demons and zombies reside. Morikawa tells Juliet that somebody has cracked open a portal between Earth and the rotten world by a combination of black magic and explosives. He also states that the only way to end the apocalypse is to defeat the foe and kill all of the remaining zombies, and sets out to find the culprit. After a quick change of clothes, Juliet then finds a stack of dynamite disguised as a large birthday cake in the cafeteria. Realizing that the school is about to be blown, she makes a run for the exit. After reuniting with Morikawa, the duo come across the person responsible for the outbreak, an evil goth named Swan that went to school with Juliet. Swan then continues to perform a dark ritual to summon the Dark Purveyors, a group of 5 malicious beings centered around the themes of rock and roll. Morikawa attempts to stop this, but fails as the Dark Purveyors already reach Earth.
Sensei!
As Swan commands the Dark Purveyors to rot the school, he commences the ritual by summoning Zed, the first zombie overlord who represents punk rock.
Torturing small animals? What kind of whack job waterboards Chip and Dale?
Offended upon learning that Zed enjoys torturing small animals, an angry Juliet easily defeats him by sawing his face and arms off. Zed utters a Latin chant as he dies, as Morikawa catches up with Juliet to give her a map that shows locations of all the other purveyors. He then states that it's quite likely that all of Juliet's classmates have been transformed into the undead. In Morikawa's bad condition, he finds confidence in Juliet and Nick, and claims that they can stop the zombie apocalypse together.
Sensei, no! Don't leave!
Oh, I have this for you.
After Morikawa humorously wakes up, he offers Juliet a birthday gift and tells how he favored her as his student. Before dying for real, a vintage-styled elevator falls from the sky as Morikawa leaves his body as a spirit and enters the elevator, giving Juliet a thumbs up as she happily waves him goodbye. As Juliet returns to the school, Nick pleads with her that he is not exactly happy in his current condition. Juliet responds with ridiculous reasons which upset Nick, but the two are interrupted by a ship flying in the sky. They are greeted by the next Dark Purveyor as he shoots down lightning bolts aimed at the duo. Upon dodging the lightning being conducted by the ship, Juliet spots her older sister and fellow zombie hunter Cordelia riding on the back of the flying ship. Juliet meets up with Cordelia at the school's swimming pool, and the two have a conversation about the bodiless Nick. The sisters then quickly maneuver a plan to land Juliet on the Purveyor's ship. As Cordelia launches her onto the floating ship, Juliet then confronts Vic, the zombie king of Viking-styled heavy metal. She manages to slice him up and lands the finishing blow through a slash of his jaw. His pet bear leaps out in an attempt to defeat Juliet, but is easily defeated through one swift kick. Like Zed before him, Vic utters a Latin chant before he dies, as the ship loses control and crash lands at a farm. Once at the farm, Juliet inspects the area, confident that another purveyor will come to attack them. She is interrupted by her younger sister, Rosalind, who drives through the area in a bus. Juliet gets on the bus and introduces Nick to Rosalind, but quickly grows suspicious when she notices her little sister acting strange. As Juliet keeps pressing her with questions, it is revealed that a dark purveyor has possessed Rosalind, and the bus is transported to an alternate dimension. In the other dimension, Juliet is confronted by Mariska, the third dark purveyor who represents psychedelic rock. She insults Mariska for her malodorous stench, but is shown her ill-conditioned sister trapped under her influence. Juliet eventually manages to break free from the psychedelic world and decapitates a dazed Mariska. Mariska also disappears after uttering a Latin chant, as Juliet realizes that Rosalind is still nowhere to be seen. She soon gets a phone call from a mysterious caller and is informed that Rosalind has been kidnapped and is being held at the local arcade. A desperate Juliet considers risking her life to save Rosalind alone, but is surprised by the sudden appearance of her father.
Hey, baby.
Daddy!
The three ride through the city on a motorbike as Juliet attempts to introduce Nick to her father. Arriving at the arcade, Juliet and the dad develop a plan on defeating the next dark purveyor. Juliet volunteers to become a decoy, while her dad would infiltrate the place to rescue Rosalind. Inside the arcade, Juliet confronts Josie, the dark purveyor representing funk rock. After taking the battle into the skies, Juliet disables his spaceship and prepares to land the finishing blow. Josie threatens to blow Rosalind up, but the dad manages to reach her first. He uses dynamite to destroy the bottom of the ship and lands both of them to the ground to safety with a parachute. Josie is then sliced in half along with his ship as Juliet drops down and watches the UFO explode. Returning to the high school, the family plans out a strategy to defeat the last dark purveyor. When Nick is presented with his makeover by Rosalind, he grows fed up being neglected of his pleas and begs with Juliet to abandon him for the better. Strongly in love with him, Juliet insists that he continues with her and takes Nick against his will. The family continues with their journey and enter an unfinished cathedral as the group split up to take care of the overrun zombies. Juliet finds Louis Legend, the final dark purveyor representing original rock and roll. The two get ready to fight as their weapons collide, sending off sparks and bullets in every direction. When Juliet manages to chop off his lower legs, Louis transforms his bike into a large machine. But Juliet ultimately defeats him through a huge slice across his torso. He is destroyed in a giant explosion and disappears after uttering a chant like the other purveyors. Things don't seem to be over though, as Swan appears before Juliet once again and reveals to Juliet that her fights against the dark purveyors was a predetermined part of Swan's diabolical plot. He claims that the sacrifice of 5 pre-selected zombies was required to summon the true zombie lord, and Latin phrases they chanted when defeated were part of an incantation to summon him. Juliet asks him for the motivation behind his actions, and Swan states that Juliet's betrayal was the reason for everything.
What? Me?
Yes, Juliet, you, bitch!
Swan then shoots himself with his guitar, and a blob of undead corpses begin to clump together.
I'll make this rotten world even more rotten. Rot away, rot away. Rot, 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 rot.
The blobs join at the center of the city to form a giant named Killabilly, the zombie of all zombies and the ugliest Elvis impersonator to date. Juliet and Nick race towards him and manage to jump over and land on his right arm. As she reaches further towards his head, Juliet gets a message from Morikawa, who states that she must enter Killabilly's body in order to defeat him. Juliet attempts to follow the orders of her deceased sensei, but is blown away by Killabilly's laser beams. Out of nowhere, Juliet's father suddenly appears, flying into the giant zombie with his motorcycle filled with grenades. Juliet witnesses his courageous act, but is heartbroken to realize that her father sacrificed himself to open up a pathway. Nick motivates Juliet to continue, and she picks herself up and leaps into the body of the giant zombie. Juliet reaches the giant zombie's core and finds a decapitated swan corpse attached to Killabilly's heart. She gets another call from Morikawa, who informs her that the only way that Killabilly can be defeated is by placing Nick on Swan's corpse and force Killabilly to self-destruct, which would also kill Nick in the process. Even though Juliet refuses to let Nick die, he manages to convince her to think about the greater good. Juliet places his head on the corpse and makes her final goodbyes as the couple express their love for each other.
I love you so much.
I love you too, baby. More than anything.
A huge blast rocks the city, destroying both Nick and Killabilly in the process. After his apparent death, Nick hears Morikawa's voice telling him that he will be resurrected due to his brave sacrifice. Unfortunately, Nick is informed that there was a mix-up with the bodies during his resurrection. Sometime later, Nick wakes up to Juliet sobbing in the rubble. After seeing Nick alive and well, the two race towards each other for a hug. They realize that Nick has been resurrected in Morikawa's body, but neither Nick nor Juliet really cares. As they begin to kiss, they are interrupted by Rosalind, and the two see that the dad is alive as well. The family and Nick rejoice and return home over a sunrise, with Juliet pleased with the outcomes of her birthday.
You know what? This has really been the best birthday ever.
If you enjoyed this video, check out these other stories on the channel, and be sure to like and subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in another lore.